Hey, hi. In this video, we're going to see how to perform an ETL operation where we're going to see how to do an incremental data load from Amazon S3 bucket to Amazon Redshift service, which is using AWS Glue. So here, Amazon Redshift server is actually a service, is actually acting as a data warehouse service. We're going to use AWS Glue service, which is actually helping us to migrate the data from Amazon S3 bucket and put it into a destination that is Amazon Redshift service, right? Which is basically AWS provided data warehouse, the service, right? So here we're gonna see how to prepare or how to have a data source called Amazon S3 bucket, which is hosting our raw data in the form of CSV file. Then we're gonna see how to configure the AWS Glue service so that we're gonna have the Glue service enabled as a pipeline, which actually loads the data from Amazon S3 bucket to Amazon Redshift service, which is basically a data warehouse service. Yeah. So here the solution is simple, right? So in my previous video, I have shown you like how to do this operation, that is how to load a data from Amazon S3 bucket to Amazon Redshift service when you have a one-time load. But think about, you want to load the data into multiple times, and where you are actually want to load only the incremental data, right? The scenario of incremental data comes in a situation where you are actually taking a daily backup of a particular database or particular service, right? And you are outputting that backup as a form of CSV file, right? And every day backup is nothing but incremental backup, right? So in that case, you want to store those data into a data warehouse service with using the services like Amazon Redshift service, which is an example of cloud provided data warehouse service, right? So in that case, you don't want to duplicate the data into Amazon Redshift server, but in that case you want to load the data in the form of a incremental load, right? In the sense, you want the data what is there in the source that has to be copied into the Amazon Redshift server, and that has to be exact map, not a duplication, right? So here the main aim of this video is how to do that in the form of, in the sense, an incremental data load, right? So I will take you to the with that explanation, I will take you to my AWS account. So this is my AWS account. First, let's go to the source. So our source here in my case is Amazon S3 bucket, right? So for that case, I have created an Amazon S3 bucket, something like this. In this S3 bucket, I have uploaded a test report.csv file, which actually contains a data something like this. I'm just going to open that test report.csv file, which is looking something like this. Okay, so it has some data. You see that there is a column called industry something, that which is actually the unique unique ID of the record. So whenever you store the data in the form of the SQL format or a structured format, a column within that table has to have a unique ID, right? So likewise, in our case, we have a industry name underscore ANG6 is nothing but this is a unique ID of the records, right? So each row will act as a record, and this column is acting as an ID of the record. All right. So this file is nothing but you can consider as a the basically consider as a backup, that the backup of your DB is being exported and stored in this table, something in this S3 bucket, something like this. Now we want to load this data into the Amazon Redshift server, which is basically acting as a data warehouse, right? So let's see how we can do that in an incremental fashion, right? All right. So first let's set up the ground, and then we're gonna mimic the incremental load scenario as well. All right. So here we have a source ready. That is, I have a S3 bucket. I loaded that example CSV file, which has some data at the rest, right? And then in the destination side, so I'm gonna open my another tab. So basically, all these tabs I have opened or belongs to my AWS account, and currently I'm in Oregon region, right? What I did is I have went to the Amazon Redshift clusters, Redshift service of AWS, and then I went to the serverless dashboard, and then I created the created a workbook, something like this. I click on this one. So this is how you set up your what I can say. So this is how you set up your Redshift clusters, okay, or Redshift serverless. Right now, AWS is providing you a data warehouse in the form of serverless as well, and this is how you can try to create something like this. First one, you need to have a work group. then you're going to provide the capacity blah blah, and these all these configurations, right? Then you need to give the namespace. The namespace is nothing but your database, right? So basically work group is nothing but you can consider as a server hosting your data warehouse databases, and the namespace is nothing but that is your database. Yeah, so this is, let me call it as a test db. Yeah, so let's call it as a test db, right? And then here you can customize the credentials, in the sense you can provide your credentials manually, right? And then for example, say test at the rate sorry hash 1234 some, this is our password. I'm going to show you the password. Like this, you can create a password, and then you can associate a IAM role as well, and then finally click next, and then create the create the cluster. Okay, so which is actually creates a Redshift cluster, which is I have already created like this. Okay, so I'm going to click on the work group name. So this is my work group name called workspace names. Yeah, and in this work group, my namespace is been hosted. Namespace is nothing but, so there are two concepts, the in Redshift serverless. One is work group, the other one is namespace. Work group is a server hosting the data warehouse database. Namespace is a database. Yeah, simple term you can understand like that. So we have a namespace. So if I go to the work groups, then we have a namespace called something like this. On the work group, you can see the configurations, like you can see that which VPC your work group is been mapped to, and you can see the security group, and then you can also see that the public accessible or not. Okay, so in my case, I have, for the demo purpose, I have activated public access on the Redshift cluster, but you can also try to access try to do an incremental load even with using the VPC endpoints, or with using the AWS provided backbone network as well, right? All right, so and also make sure that you also enable the enhanced VPC routing. Yeah, so that is the configuration that you need to maintain, right? Along with that, I will gonna give you few more important points that you need to maintain in this work group configurations. Okay, so here on the VPC, if you can go to the VPC, so if you click on this VPC, it will take me to this page. So this is my AWS accounts VPC page. So currently I'm in a VPC dashboard basically, and this is the VPC where my Redshift work group is been hosted, that is VPC ending with 5551. So if you go to here, so our VPC is ending with 551, and that is the same VPC I'm here, and we have a subnets where the Redshift work group has been hosted, and then we have a route table. So in the route table, I have a proper routings been configured. So basically, why I'm walking you through these network components are so that you need to understand that what is the configuration that you need to maintain on these VPC resources. Then only your Redshift cluster will work fine. Then your AWS Glue will do the job of migrating the data from source to destination, and in the incremental loading fashion as well. So here you need to have these configurations in place like this. Yeah, and there is one more thing which you need to keep in mind, is to have an endpoint for basically by default there is an endpoint will be created as soon as you create a Redshift serverless, right? So along with that, you need to maintain one more VPC endpoint of service S3 bucket of endpoint type equal to gateway. So how to create endpoint? So click on this endpoint button, give some name something like this, and then you choose the service name like this. Choose here, like just search for S3 bucket, and there is a endpoint with this name, that is a gateway. Choose that gateway and try to select the VPC. So in this case, this is a VPC. Choose your route table, all right, like this, and try to create there is a button to create the endpoint. That's all. So basically, once you create that, and we will have an endpoint created as expected. You see the status of that VPC endpoint is available. All right, so this is the second configuration you need to maintain as expected, along with the other one. So there is one more thing that you need to maintain. That is the very important component, that is security group, right? So here security group is actually acting as a kind of firewall, or a service which actually regulates the inbound and outbound traffic to your Redshift serverless cluster. Okay, so here in this case, you make sure to have these kind of inbound rules. So in my case, I have allowed all traffics to the security group. Along with that, for since this is demo, I have opened all the traffics from the internet, but this is not a best practices. If I can tell you, you can try to minimize the traffic as per your demand or as per your cluster. All right, so with that note, this is how the configuration setup is being done on the Redshift cluster side. All right, so I'm just going to close on the VPC side. So basically I'm going to go back to the Redshift work group as well. So this is a Redshift serverless. Okay, so if I go back, Redshift serverless dashboard. So this is where, this is how the, Redshift, Amazon Redshift namespace and work group dashboard looks like that. Yeah. So so what you do is, next thing what we need to do is, so now you are well known about the work group configuration. Let's go to the namespace side. Okay, so in the namespace, if you see here, so this is what it shows. It shows that this is the work group. It has been pointed to blah blah things, right? And then you have the data backup configurations, security, right? Blah blah things are there here, right? So this is not important for us, but in our case, we need to be very accurate on the work group side. So let's go back to the work group again. So here, as you see here, basically we have endpoints data, right? So we have lots of things here, right? So along with that, what we need to do is now we need to do one more step. That is nothing but on the Amazon Redshift servers, we need to set up our a table, right? So you have a source table and you need to have a destination table as well, right? So let's set up our destination table on this case. In the sense, you have Amazon Redshift serverless cluster. So in this serverless cluster, let's set up a table underneath the default database, which we can use to load the data from Amazon, S3 bucket, right? So for that case, I'm gonna click on the query data, which will take me to somewhere like this. Okay, if I can reopen again, so click on a query data, or there is an option called a query editor 2, so you can click on that. So it will take you to the page something like this. Yeah. So here you see that the serverless workspaces, right? So serverless workspace, this is for serverless workspace name. Yeah. And then we have the the database called dev. Underneath the database we have a schema called public. Underneath that schema, we don't have any table. Let's create an example table, right? So how I'm creating example table is nothing but the data present in the CSV file, which I am going to upload. I have already uploaded into Amazon S3 bucket, which I showed you. So the column names, I'm going to convert that column names into a table. In the sense, the table that you want to migrate to Amazon Redshift serverless cluster, you need to create a same schema here, right? So by considering the column names and row names of this test report.csv file, I have created an SQL command which will create a table on the Redshift cluster. So this is the create table command, where the table name is persons. It has a column name called industry underscore name ANZ sick, which is int. And then we have the other two columns as an example columns, both are varchars. Remember that the first row of this table is acting as a primary column of the table, right? So I'm going to run this now, which actually creates a table in our case. Okay, so if I refresh the work group, there we can see now we should be able to see a table now. So if I can expand this work group, go to the database. Our database is dev. So you go to the public, right? Underneath that public, now we have a table. So now if I can query this one, so basically let's do a select table. By running this command, let's see if we have something underneath this one. Right now we don't have anything in this table. Let's do the load from the S3 bucket. In the sense, I have uploaded this test report.csv in the S3 bucket. Now let's load into the Amazon Redshift. In the sense, now we have a source, we have a destination ready. We need to now construct the bridge. So here AWS Glue service is acting as a purely dedicated for ETL operation, which will help you to achieve the at any scale of required data loading. In the sense, this is a very wonderful service that the Amazon has produced, AWS has given us. It will help you to do a lots of things around the ETL operations, basically. Yeah. So let's see how to configure the AWS Glue and try to do our job. That is nothing but load the data and also mimic the incremental loading of the data. So this is very, very important part of the demo. So for this case, let's get started with the first one. First one is, as I explained in my previous video, we need to have a crawler between AWS Glue to Amazon S3 bucket, right? Let's see how to create the crawler first, then we're going to go to the next other configurations. Okay, so you need to follow the same steps as I explained here. Let's go to the crawler first. So I'm going to click on the crawlers, right? So in this crawler, basically we need to create a crawler, right? So I have already created a crawler, but I'm going to explain you how we need to create the crawlers here. So let's gonna create a crawler like this, and what I do is I'm gonna go to the so here I'm gonna give the name of the color called test demo s3 test s3. So this is our test s3 crawler, and then we're gonna go to the next. In the next, you need to choose the basically data source. So here our data source is s3 bucket, right? So click on add data source, click on that. Then we have a s3 bucket. Choose the s3 one. Network options, we don't need to choose that anything, just keep it blank. In the location, choose in this account. In the s3 path, we're going to click on a browser, and here we're going to choose the bucket. So this is our bucket. If I go back, our bucket name is data bucket source side. Yeah, so that's the bucket. I'm going to choose it now in the glue side. So let's choose this bucket and click on choose button. So then you need to give a / something like this. Subsequent crawler run, so choose crawl all the folders, right? And click on add source basically. Yeah, and then click on next. Right, in this one you're going to choose the ETL role. So here ETL lambda role is nothing but admin role in my case, and that has a trust to the services like Amazon Redshift service. I'm going to show you that role in a while. So if I can open that IAM service, and then I'm going to open it into a new tab again, and we're going to see that how does that IAM role looks like that, right? So I can show you that role. So how does that role looks like? So if I go to that role, that is ETL IAM role. So basically ETL. So this is the ETL lambda access role. As I said, it has a admin access. It has other full access. Basically, admin is a full access. And in the trust, you see that I have a trust to the Redshift cluster, trust to the glue services. Basically, in the sense you need to add STS assume role action trusted by the AWS services like glue and Redshift clusters. Okay, so that is what the configuration is there in this IAM role. All right, so I'm explaining the configurations and the nook and corners of the configurations step by step. All right, let's go to the next one. Right, so here you need to choose a targeted database. You can create a new database or you can choose the existing one. So in my case, I have created a database called Incremental load. Right, and then table name you can also give like something like demo table, so that it gets created with the prefix, right, something like this. And then run the crawler on demand. If you click on next, so here you can click on create crawler basically. Yep, and that's also basically once you click on create crawler, I'm not gonna create it again. So I'm gonna cancel the this configuration. So under the hood, the crawler would look something like this. Yeah. All right. So this is the one configuration that you need to maintain, which is nothing but crawler between AWS Glue and Amazon S3 bucket. Now let's go to the another configuration, that is connections. Connection is very important in this. It plays a very vital role in this case. What is the connections? So AWS Glue has to have an access on Amazon Redshift. The work group, basically a serverless work group. So on this one, to authenticate to that work group, it needs to have a connection data, right? So here it uses JDBC connections. Let's see how to construct that connections. Okay, so for that case I'm going to show you again. So how did I created this Redshift connections? So for that case, you go to the data catalog, click on connections, create connections. So here you're going to choose the Amazon Redshift. You see there is a service called Amazon Redshift in the connections, and then what you do is you're going to click next. Here choose your clusters. In the sense, by default this connections creation page automatically scan the Redshift cluster present in your region, that is Oregon region, and that will be listed here. So in my case, my work group name is, this is my work group name, right? And it has automatically identified that there are certain tables, there are certain databases underneath that. Where you can find that is something from here. You see that is database name is this, right? So let's use Dev. So for that case, it is automatically identifying the data name is equal to Dev. And then we need to provide a username and password. So in my case, my username and password, so my super secret password has been added like this here, right? And then click next, and here you can give the name and then click next, right? And after that, just click on a create connection, which will actually create a Redshift cluster connections, which is looks something like this, and type is JDBC. Remember that. Yeah. So that is not enough. So after creation of the connection, you need to do a testing as well. So there is action. You can click on a test connection, once you click on a test connection, it will ask you for IAM role to be used for this purpose. Click confirm, and that connection has to be established, then only it will work, right? So in my case, it is taking currently it is actually testing the connections. Let's see if it works. It has worked basically. So if I can wait for a seconds. So as you see that it is actually testing the connections. In the sense, generally it will go green if there are all connections are correct. All right. So while it is testing, what I do is I'm going to go back to the endpoints here. So we have a required endpoints, public access is there, everything is clear. Let's see what it has went on. Okay. So currently it is doing basically currently it is testing the connections. Yeah. All right. So let's wait for a seconds and then see that if it actually tests the connections. Yeah. So generally it will go in a green. Yeah. So I'm gonna wait for a second here. So basically, let's see how does it goes. Yep. All right. So looks like it is taking some time. I'm gonna go on a hang mode, and I will come back again. Yeah. All right. As you see here, the test connection has went green, successfully connected to the data store. Okay. So this means that whatever the configuration that we have done here is correct. Okay. All right. So with that, we are done with the second configuration, that is connection here. All right. So with that note, we need to now we can jump for the ETL job. All right. So what is our job is we need to configure a job in the AWS Glue such a way that it will copy the data from here and loads the data into Amazon Redshift, and also it does the incremental loading as well. All right. So I'm going to show you that how to do that. For example, let me create that job from the scratch, something like this here. So for example, say I'm going to delete this off because I'm going to create it again from the scratch. Yeah. So we have deleted the job. What I do is I'm going to create the ETL job in front of you. So let's to create that, what we do is we're going to go back again. Click on this ETL job and then visual ETL. Click on visual ETL. So here you have a visual ETL option. So here you see that source, transform, and target basically. Yeah. So here our source is S3 bucket, and I don't want to do any transform. Yeah, for now I will go to the target, that is Amazon Redshift. All right. So once you select this one, automatically you see that that it has the visual has automatically selected all the options, right? So here there is a name. We can change the name like this. That is this is a heart of the demo. Okay. So remember that this is very, very important. The show. So I will say that that this is demo job. Yeah. So I'm going to call it as a demo job. And currently we are configuring source. So in this case, source is Amazon S3 bucket. So in the source type, I'm going to choose the data catalog. Why? Because I'm using the crawler. Okay. And crawler does create a data catalog. So here we're going to choose our database, that is incremental load, and automatically it will list a table called something like this. So why does the table gets created? Because as soon as you create a crawler and run the crawler, it will create a table, and that table is nothing but it has loaded the data from data is loaded from the Amazon S3 into a temporary database called data catalog. Underneath that you have a database, and the table is being created at AWS Glue. All right. And that is what we are setting it here. Okay. So with that option, if you choose a IAM role here, something like this, ETL, okay. So and it will automatically show you that whether it has loaded or not. So we're going to select this IAM role and start the session. You see that it has automatically started the session, and it tries to do the preview of that, in the sense whatever the configuration that you have selected here, are those are correct or not. Okay. So it will automatically show you the data being extracted from that S3 bucket with using all these configuration that we selected here, right? So currently it is starting. We need to wait for a few seconds as it says, and it will automatically preview the data. Yeah. So job has not been saved. Okay, fine. Looks like it has successfully done the data. It is currently loading the data in preview. So we need to wait for that, and then we need to go for the basically for the target, that is Amazon Redshift. Okay. All right. So let's wait for data load. You see that loading data 100% is complete. All right. So here you go. Right. So as I said earlier, the table is being loaded. This is our column, primary column. Then we have other columns, and all the data are being loaded here. All right. So and you can see the schema as well, which is great sign. Let's go to the another option. So for that case, I'm going to choose the target here. Now configuring the target is very sensitive, so let's see how we can do that. Let me call the target name is Amazon Redshift. So here I'm going to show you that in the node parents we're going to choose the node. In the sense, our node parent is nothing but source of the data, that is Amazon S3. I'm going to choose that. And then in the next option, that is Redshift access method. So what is the access method? You're going to use it here, right? So here I'm going to use the connection method, which I already configured. And when it says connection method, it will automatically populate the data, that is the database name, and then it will populate the schemas present underneath that, and then it will also show you the database table, right? This is the table which we're going to preview now, right? And this is the most important part of the demo, that is handling of the data and target table, right? So you see there are lots of options: append to a target table, merge data into the target table, truncate the data into target table, drop and recreate a table. Okay, so they are very, very important, the options that the glue provides, that is AWS glue provides us, and which will suit for multiple conditions. In our case, my condition is to load the data as it is. So I want to load the data incremental, while I also need to take care of the for example, say I have uploaded 10 rows, and then my rows grown into a 12 into the source side. So in that case, the incremental row number is only 2. So when I do a data load operation for the second time, it has to create only 12 records into the Amazon Redshift serverless cluster, while it has to create a two new rows, and existing rows has to be kept as it is. And then if there are certain modifications are there in the existing 10, it has to do that. So that is what operation is called incremental load with a merger options. Okay, so for that case, I'm going to choose merge the data into the targeted table, which is a suitable case. You see that glue will either update or append the data to the targeted table based on the conditions, which is the best case to choose it for all the situations or all the enterprise grades. And in that one, we need to choose a keys. In the sense, this operation need to choose a particular simple key. In the sense, you need to choose a primary key of the table. So in my case, my primary key is this table, that is industry name ANG6. Yeah. All right. Then when matches, in the sense, update the record into table. In the sense, when certain situation matches, what you need to do, it says that update the record into the table with the data form from the source. All right. So with that option, what I do is we are done with the configuration. You see that in the output, it clearly shows the data as well. It is matching everything. Data preview is not required here because this is a target. Yeah. And then we're going to save this option. In the sense, we are actually, with using the visual method of ETL job, we have constructed our ETL job definitions. Yeah. So if you go to the left hand blades and go to the jobs here. So if you go to the basically, where is the jobs, ETL jobs, click on this ETL jobs, and here we're going to see our job is ready. In the sense, our job definition is ready. Let's run this job to load the data from the source to destination for the first time. And so once you run this one, you can visualize in the sense, you can monitor the job status by clicking on job run, right? So currently the demo job is currently running. So while it is running, what I do is I'm going to walk you through that. So here, note that the data present in the report.csv file will be loaded into Amazon Redshift serverless cluster. Okay, so nothing but the data is getting migrated from Amazon S3 bucket into Amazon Redshift serverless data warehouse cluster. All right, so with that note, let's see if our job is done. Once the job is done, you can see right now, right? So what we did is, when I run the table, that is this person's table, right now no rows to show, right? So this is what I showed you. After that job gets completed, we should see some records, right? And then we're going to mimic the incremental data, so which I'm going to show you in a couple of minutes now. Let's see if this job is getting completed. So it will take some time, like nearby 1 minute. So we need to wait. You see that the previous the examples which I tried, it took 1 minute. Okay, so for that case, what I do is I'm going to suppose I'm going to wait on this one. So while it is running, I'm going to wait for a couple of seconds and come back again. Yeah. All right. Okay, so let me go on a just try set. In the sense, what I do is I'm going to keep refreshing it because it's going to take a 1 minute here. All right, so I'm going to refresh it now. So while it is running, you can also keep trying the queries on the table side. You might see that the data is getting loaded here, right? So earlier it was no row to show. It is still no row to show. Maybe the data is still loading. You can also see that here you go, right? So there are suddenly data appeared. So where does this data got appeared? data got appeared because our glue job has done the job. In the sense, ETL job has done the operation of loading the data, right? And if I refresh it now, the job status will go in a succeed mode, right? So currently it is still calculating what is the state. So that's the reason it is not showing you the data here. If you refresh it here again for some time, so it will gonna show you that it is in a succeeded state. All right. So how I'm saying that it is a succeeded state is by if I go to the table and do a select star from the particular table, and it shows a 12 records now, right? All right. So with that note, what I can share you that the things need to be shown in this video. That is to first to load the data, then to perform the incremental load, right? So now we are done with the first stage, that is loading the data. Now what I do is I'm desperately gonna mark update something here, and check whether it does the incremental loading. Yeah. So for that case, what I do is I'm gonna mimic the situations. In the sense, for example, say for the first time when you taken a backup, the data is in this format. When you do a second time, the data will go to be changed something like this. Yeah. So how is that going to change it like this? For example, say what I do is I'm going to say zzz, this is this. Yeah. And I'm going to give this blah blah names, and then we're going to add a few records. And see here, I'm changing the values of the records randomly, right? So there were all xyz's. Now I have introduced some changes in this size group column name. Along with that, I'm going to introduce two more columns, five more columns maybe, right? So I'm going to go like this, 15. Since this is a unique ID column, so make sure that you add a unique IDs, right? So if there are a duplicate, it will not take. Yeah, so that is what input I can give here. And let's add some random data here, right? So I'm just say like this, right? So what I'm doing is I'm modifying the existing row, plus I'm also adding a new rows into the this particular the CSV file, nothing but a table, in the sense you are whatever the source is coming, right? So I'm just adding these random datas. Now let's upload this file into the S3 bucket again. What does this mean? In the sense, you have taken incremental backup now, right? So I'm going to upload the same file now. So this is the file which got modified just now. I'm uploading that file, which means that I have taken the incremental backup. Now let's see whether when I run the job, that is ETL job, does my record in the Amazon Redshift serverless server gets incrementally loaded. In the sense, it just has to do the required job. In the sense, it has to update the rows if it is updated in the source side. It has to add a new rows if the new rows are being added in the source side. That is the main aim of the demo. All right. So now our file is updated. What I do is, for that case, I have to do two things. One, I need to run the crawler first. Why I need to run the crawler? Because job, so whatever the job we have created here refers to the crawler, in the sense refers to the output of the crawler. Okay, so for that case, let's first run the crawler. The crawler is pointing to the Amazon S3 bucket, right? Once the crawler is successful, then we need to run the job, right? So for that case, I'm going to run it now quickly. So currently it should be running. It's going to take a couple of seconds. Let's see. Once it is done, then we can jump for the ETL job. Once the ETL job has been run, then we can see that whether it has changed the the table like this. In the sense, after I run the ETL job, I'm expecting that the table of the Amazon Redshift serverless should look something like this. Yeah, it should have a data in this format. That's what the expectation is. If it is in this format, that means that we have achieved the required incremental loading, right? So currently I'm running the prerequisite stage, that is running the crawler, right? Currently I have marked it as a run on demand. You can schedule this crawler according to your need. Even ETL job can also be scheduled, right? All right. So for this case, let's wait for this to get complete. While it is running, what I do is I'm going to take back to the table. So this is our Amazon Redshift serverless cluster table. We are in a query stage. In the sense, I'm querying the table, which we are actually doing an incremental load operation. If I run it, it has only 12 records, and the updated table has 18 records, plus a few modifications in the record number. Say like there are, like, I have introduced DSF something like this, and there is a there is a record changes in the 11th and 12th value, right? So if I go back to the rows number 11th and 12th, so if I go to the 11th, and so 11th it has XYZ 11, in the 12th it has XYZ 12, which has to be changed after loading it. All right, let's go to a crawler and see that if the crawler has done the job. It's currently stopping, which means that it has done the job. Let's wait for it to ready, and then I can run the ETL job. I'm currently waiting for this to get complete. So once it is stopped or in a ready state, then we can go to the ETL job. All right, so let's wait for this to get complete. So make sure that the crawler schedule and the job schedule has to be in a synchronous manner. Okay, so those should be in a synchronous manner. Remember that, yeah. All right, so here the state is ready, which means that we can run the ETL job now. So if I go to the ETL job, so this is our ETL job which we defined. Now I'm going to run this job now. I'm going to select this and click on a run job. So currently it says that it started the job successfully. So you can monitor the job by going into the data integration and ETL operations, go to the job running monitor, and you can see that the job currently, there is a demo job is currently being running. Let's wait for this to get complete, and then we're going to see that whether our pipeline has done the job. That is nothing but does it really did incremental loading plus dynamically mapping the rows which is already loaded, in the sense dynamically updating the rows if it is updated, like that, yeah. All right, so I'm gonna go this one, refresh it be here basically. So once this is done, so why did I do this video is because one of my famous video is basically was being watched by more than the 60K people right now till this time, and people have demanded for incremental loading. That's the reason this video is dedicated for those viewers. All right, so I'm going to refresh it again and then see that whether it has done the job. Okay, so I'm expecting that it has to be get succeeded first, and then we can check in the destination side, that is Amazon Redshift server. I'm going to waiting for this to get complete. It's going to take a 1 minute. Meanwhile, we can also try keep running this one from the. So right now we had a 12 records. I'm expecting it to convert into 16, 17 records. Here you go. All right, so our records are being updated. I was showing you that this has to be exactly like this. Okay, you see that we have a table something like this, that is at the 11 it is ZZZ, right, something like that, and then the 17 records are being added. In the sense, this table looks to be similar to this one, yeah. And you can also cross verify that the 12th record is updated and you have a 17 records got updated, yeah, which means that we are actually achieved the required incremental loading with the dynamic rows are getting mapped as well, yeah. So that is, which means that we have successfully achieved the things need to be shown in this video as well. All right, so looks like the job is also succeeded, and we were also able to see that whenever there is an incremental, I'm talking about the scenarios like incremental backup should be loaded into a data warehouse service, right? In that case, this is what the demo, you can try to use it in your case. Okay, all right, so with that note, I have shown you the things need to be shown in this video, that is how to load the data from Amazon S3 bucket to Amazon Redshift cluster with the incremental data load format as well. All right, so with that note, thank you for watching my video. Kind request, please do subscribe my channel, that would really encourage me a lot. With that note, thank you, thanks a lot, and see you in the next video.